My name's Sarah Brain, and I work for the West Midlands Social Work Teaching Partnership, which is hosting these sessions on Practice Week. This session's called Reflecting on Learning from Virtual Family Time. And it's being put together and being presented by Selena Ravich from Worcestershire Children's First. Just to tell you a little bit about the West Midlands Teaching Partnership. It's one of 23 accredited teaching partnerships across the country, and it's been funded by the Department of Education, and its aim is to strengthen the quality of social work education and practice. It includes local authorities, education, higher education institutes, children's trusts, NHS trusts, and it's made up of 28 partners in total. The partnership aims to bring together practitioners, senior managers, academics, researchers, and experts by experience to support us in our work in improving social work education and practice. I hope you enjoy today's session. Thank you. And what I would also say is that if everybody could put themselves on mute and turn the cameras off, the session is being recorded, so I need to make you aware of that, and it will be used as a resource afterwards and be available on the website. And if you want to use a chat function, that's probably the best way of asking any questions, and then we can come back to them afterwards. Thank you.
So I'm Selena Ravich, and I hope that everyone can see the presentation. We've had a few technical issues because I've only got one screen, but I think we've overcome the great adversity we've faced. So I'll just go ahead and if we can put questions in the chat function, and then we can come back to them at the end. So as I said, I'm Selena Ravich. I'm a group manager in Worcestershire Children's First, and I manage the 4 looked after children's teams, as well as the contact service, which has been through some really significant changes over COVID. These slides, I will talk you through the slides, and I'm sure that they can be sent out if anyone wants them at the end. So COVID has been challenging for us all, particularly in terms of family time. And during the first lockdown, which was March 2020, we had to move to virtual contact for all families. There were some exceptional circumstances, very small babies. You can't do virtual contact with a newborn. And we did make sure that contact continued to be bespoke for each individual family. And that meant talking with the manager and the social worker and devising a bespoke contact plan. Virtual contact, as I'm talking about it, is classed as contact via telephone or visual virtual, which is Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WhatsApp, or video calls. Throughout the last year, as you'll all know, we've kind of been on a learning journey in terms of our virtual platforms. So we started on Zoom and now we've ended up on Teams, and actually we found that to be really effective, even for our children, young people and carers. Contact happened within carers' homes and was supported by foster carers or residential care, and happened where the children were. What we started hearing through that process was actually that virtual contact was really effective. The feedback we were getting was that children and young people felt that it was less pressure at times, and also for some of our parents, it was easier for them to fit into their lives. So actually for us, that's a win-win, because the worst thing for children is to want to go to contact, be prepared for it, and then their parents not be able to turn up. And we did find that it supported parent and child relationships throughout. So we had this as kind of anecdotal evidence. So for us, it was like, what next? How do we formalise this and really understand how people experienced family time during this period? So what we did is myself and the principal social worker, who's also our Q&A lead, and the group manager for the fostering service came together, and we devised a survey that was going to be given to parents, carers and children and young people to see how they experience contact during this time. because of it was coincidental, but just at the period we started doing the survey, we went into a local lockdown. That was before Christmas, and we were certainly locked down in Birmingham and in Worcester and surrounding areas. So it meant that the contact team had more time, and social workers were able to phone kids and young people and get feedback on the survey. So we did it in a number of ways. When people were having face-to-face contact, we asked them to stay behind to do the survey. At the contact team were able to phone children, young people and parents they had a good relationship with, and social workers were also able to do that. And then carers were emailed the survey, and we managed to get 217 responses, which I think is quite a good response. And out of that, we had 87 children, 71 parents and 59 carers. So they all had similar questions. And what I'll do is the presentation, I'll go through it. Carers, children and families, so you're clear about the feedback we got. And I'll start with children and young people. So 64% of children and young people enjoyed having virtual family time. Which was surprising, because if you spoke to the social workers and to my team managers, everyone was quite against it at the start, because they didn't feel that it was a replacement. People understood why it needed to be there, but actually I think all of us were very stuck in that you can't replace our usual way of doing things. But 64% of children and young people said that they liked virtual family time, and 53% said that they wanted to continue having virtual family time alongside face-to-face family time into the future. We had, in each of the sections, we had free space for people to give us comments that and feedback that they wanted to, that wasn't necessarily led by a question, and I've kind of grouped it as we go along. So children and young people said that they really enjoyed having the chance to see their parents in the place that they lived. So that was younger kids being able to show them their favourite toy. One of the comments was a child was able to read a bedtime story with their parents. There were lots of benefits that you wouldn't normally get with face-to-face family time, because it'd be very unusual for parents to be in a foster care or residential setting in the same way that they could be virtually. Children and young people felt able to speak to their parents on significant dates that we wouldn't normally be able to. Sometimes we can offer parents contact on their birthdays, but it's not usual that we're able to facilitate that. But when it's a virtual phone call, actually we were able to do that, and both parents and children and young people valued that. Sibling groups were able to have individual one-to-one time with their parents. If you've got a family of 5 siblings, then that parent has to, if it's one contact session, has to split their time between those siblings. But if you can split it down into virtual family time, smaller sessions, or one sibling has the phone at one time, which means the parent can engage on a one-to-one basis. We did have 2 kids out of the 87 who said that they didn't enjoy virtual family time, and the reason they didn't enjoy it is because the value in family time for them was about hugging and being very tactile with their parents. So in terms of parents, we had 79% of parents felt that virtual family time was successful and supported their relationship with their child. I was surprised at that. But I'm pleased, and I think it's a really useful tool. And 69% of parents said that having contact by virtual means was less disruptive or the same, and they were able to fit it into their lives more easily. When I looked into what they meant by disruptive, what we understood was actually some parents aren't set up for contact virtually, so we need to support them with that. Also, we're in Worcestershire, and it can be quite rural in parts, so the internet connection isn't as strong. So we do need to make sure, if we are promoting this kind of contact, that parents are given the tools to enable them to engage in it. 58% of parents felt it had been more beneficial or about the same for their children. And 77% of parents felt that going forward, they felt a mixture of virtual family time and face-to-face family time, direct family time should be the plan. Again, parents echoed what the children said. They really valued the individual one-to-one time with children. Parents were able to recognise that arrangements could allow more contact between siblings to build those bonds. So it's always a struggle and a balance for children and young people. You know, they need to see two parents who are separated, grandmother and also their siblings, and that then takes a lot of time out of their life within their care arrangement, whatever that is. But if we can support some of those relationships with virtual family time, whether that be the siblings talking or them talking to some family members in that way, it's easier to fit in and it's less disruptive for them. Parents said that they were pleased that they felt reassured that they could see where children lived. I'll come to that in the kind of recommendations. We have asked carers to support and facilitate and supervise family time. That doesn't mean that for every case the carer is going to be sat in shop listening to everything that's being said. For some families, it would be appropriate for the carers to be in the background getting on with making dinner or whatever tasks they need to do. But we do also need to make sure that we protect carers in it and that they're not left open to having their personal details or their home open if they didn't feel comfortable with that, but I'll link that to the recommendations a bit later on. But overall, parents could directly see where their children were. Parents felt that virtual family time could be arranged directly with carers, which for some parents is great, and for some carers, when they've got that relationship, it's a lot more natural and it's much more like real life, without having the intervention of a social worker all the time, when everybody's comfortable with those arrangements, including the social work team. And then when we asked what we could do to improve virtual family time, connectivity was one of the issues. And I do see that even here at County Hall, where we're based, the internet strength is poor. So it would depend on where your local authority is. If you're in Birmingham, you're not going to get pockets of poor internet connection, but if you're in rural Wales, you may do. So we just need to factor that in and make sure parents, we're not setting parents up to fail with that and upsetting children and young people. So carers, 80% of carers felt that contact arrangements have been more beneficial or about the same. Only 20%, so 12 out of the 59, felt that contact arrangements have been less beneficial than face-to-face family time, which I think is really telling, actually. 74% of carers felt that virtual time have been less disruptive or the same, and this is for them and the children that they cared for. And 68% of carers felt that going forward we should have a mix of virtual family time and face-to-face family time. What did they say? So some carers felt that virtual family time should be supervised by our own contact team, and we can do that. We actually took us a while to get there, but to realise that you don't actually physically need to be there. You can set up a meeting that you can join virtually. So whether it's our contact team or whether it's the social worker supervising that family time, that again takes a lot less time and a lot less arranging for them. Virtual contactors support children to feel less anxious about contact, and therefore it's been less disruptive to care arrangements. We're talking about a time where everybody's anxieties were so high because none of us had ever been through anything like COVID before. But when the world starts to go back to normality, we do know that children and young people do get anxious around contact for many different reasons. And if there's any way that we can support them to enjoy a positive relationship with their family, but also feel less anxious, then that's a win-win for me. Carers said that virtual contact is better for older children. It's hard for young children to engage in this method of communication, and we get that. I don't think it's impossible. For for younger children, I think you just need to be more creative about how you try and engage them. We do have to look at the value of virtual contact for a tiny baby, because it would be about the parent's needs as opposed to the child's needs, I think, in that case, because they wouldn't be getting anything from it. And carers said that virtual contact could be arranged between them and parents, which is more natural and relaxed for them. One carer raised that the parents now have their mobile number and they're sending them inappropriate text. There will always be parents that do that. I'm not minimising it, but what we've learned is that we need to take steps to ensure that as a social work team we remain in control and we're not just saying to carers it's over to you. And one of the things was that actually virtual contact is arranged via Microsoft Teams, and it's done on the family laptop or the child's school laptop. And in that way, parents wouldn't need carers' contact details. So, what have we done differently? What we learned was overall virtual family time's been very successful, and the majority of each group agreed with this. Yeah, as with any arrangements and any care plan, it needs to be child-centred planning and clear arrangements in place for all parties. So we're not saying that we're going to go to virtual family time forever. Absolutely not. Would be inappropriate, and for some children it won't be appropriate to do virtual family time. But what we are saying is that virtual family time will offer benefits to a lot of our children and young people, and just because COVID is over, when we get to that point, doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to use the things that we've learned. You know, I'm sure we will all continue to have meetings via Microsoft Teams and do events via Teams, and that's the same for virtual family time. We did learn that it supports children and young people and their family to positively maintain their relationship. Parents felt valued the more natural feel of virtual family time. Virtual family time does increase flexibility in dates and times and reduces travel, benefiting all parties. If it doesn't need to be supervised and the social work team are happy and it can be supported by the carers, then the carers and the parents can arrange that between themselves, and just let the social worker know when contact will be happening. Virtual family time offers the children opportunity to show how they're living and although ensuring there's a limitation on the background to maintain privacy. So that's what I was talking to before. We wouldn't want a parent to have edited access to a carer's home. That wouldn't be appropriate, but actually you can set it up so the young person is in their bedroom, or there's a screen so the parent can't see into the whole home, but the young person will still be able to show them where they live and show them their toys or show them their bedroom, which is more than direct family time arrangements would ever be able to offer. So virtual family time gives greater flexibility and allows parents and their children one-to-one time and sibling groups as well, with less disruption when children have to leave a session. For example, if you've got a mixed age group and you've got a 3-year-old and a 10-year-old, and the 3-year-old can only cope with half an hour, well, they could cope with half an hour and the 10-year-old could have 45 minutes. And that wouldn't be very disruptive. There wouldn't be that ending where that would be disruptive to a face-to-face contact session. The logistics of virtual family time were experienced really positively. It is an opportunity for children and young people to have more control, and for carers to take a lead with family time arrangements where appropriate. There are some children and young people it will never be appropriate to do virtual family time for. So where psychologically a child needs to keep that placement a safe space, we're not going to be inviting parents into that placement. If we needed to do virtual family time, we'd find a way of doing that in another way. such as a contact centre, but you have got to question the value of that if kids are actually having to get up and leave their placement. But there will always be children and young people that it won't be appropriate for, and that's why I'm saying it's a bespoke care plan in terms of family time for each child and young person. And children and young people are able to enjoy contact with their family without so much intrusion into their care placement. Some children have felt unable to say but don't want to see parents, but they don't want to say that to them. Like, they do want to see them, they want to make sure they're okay, but they are happy with those virtual arrangements. And it's a really hard thing to ask a child or a young person to say. But we can see from the way it's been positively received that actually virtual family time can feel less intrusive and can feel less intense, I suppose, than those direct arrangements. So what will we do differently? In some circumstances, virtual family time will need to be supervised by our family time team or social workers. This will be when the relationship between the parent and carer is very difficult, or the children have requested that their social worker support them with their relationship with their parent. That can be done, that's like direct family time. Sometimes our contact team supervises, sometimes social workers there. As I said, it took us a while to get there, but we did learn that we can just log on to that family time arrangement, so it is less disruptive for everyone. Virtual family time reduces pressures and demands on social workers and contact teams, and sometimes carers can facilitate those arrangements from their own homes. In terms of care planning, social work team, children and carers, social workers need to put in place clear advice and guidance to help carers set boundaries and be clear about the expectations. So we don't want carers to feel like we're saying, right, over to you, you deal with contact, because that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, in some circumstances, it's appropriate for carers to take the lead and to facilitate that contact. However, before that time, work will have been done with them and with parents and with children and young people, so everyone understands the boundaries and what's appropriate and what's not, and what would happen if something goes wrong. So the carer does have to intervene. The carer doesn't feel like they're being blamed by the parent. The parents are very clear it's on our advice, because we are still the care planners, and the social worker will still be the lead professional. Carers need to understand as well that virtual family time needs to be supervised. There'll be different levels of supervision, as I alluded to earlier. For some kids, it will need to be, and some parents, where carers are sat next to them. And for some children and young people, it will be more relaxed, where they're in the background, but they're listening and observing, and can pick up cues if a child or young person's becoming upset, or a parent saying anything inappropriate, and then they can intervene. So we need to adapt virtual family time to enable young children to engage. One parent fed back that actually it was easier to engage with their younger child when they were in a high chair. And you know, if you've got young children, actually strapping them into a high chair, giving them some snacks does focus their attention. And then you can show them the screen to enable them to engage. They're never going to engage for an hour, you know, they're little kids that want to get up and go around, but 15-20 minutes you might get some engagement, some good engagement from the younger child. As I said before, parents may need to be provided with equipment to engage with virtual family time. They do need a laptop or an electronic device or a phone. Without that, a video enabled phone, they're just not going to be able to do that. We're suggesting in Worcestershire Children's First that Microsoft Teams is the best platform. That's not going to mean that every session of virtual family time is going to be over Teams, because some young people are going to say, no, I want to FaceTime, I want to Zoom, I want to Snapchat, and that's fine. It will be different for, you know, our older adolescent young people, but to protect carers, we think that Teams is the best forum. And for most of our children, carers for most children, carers and families would like there to be a mixture of virtual and face-to-face contact going into the future. So we've already shared this learning throughout the organisation, including with our legal services, and each family will continue to have a bespoke family time plan that will be reviewed via the LAC review process. However, virtual family time will be a part of that for most children and young people. And if it's not, that will be the exception, and that will be the cases where they need to keep placement addresses and placements a safe space, or very, very small babies where actually wouldn't be beneficial. And overall, what we've learned is that children and young people are much happier and more content with their contact arrangement and the impact that this has had on their lives, which, you know, COVID has been terrible, we'll all agree, and it's been terrible for all public services, but there has been bits that all of us have learned and can take into the future. And I think it's really good that we're looking more closely on that so they're not lost. And so we can be really clear with parents and children, young people and our carers about the value of certain things that were enforced upon us, but now they're no longer enforced, will still be a part of life going forward. Okay, so I've come to the end of my presentation. So if I stop sharing, and then I can see if anyone's got any questions or any discussion point. Did that work? Have I stopped sharing?
Yes, we've got a hand up there from someone called Lunes.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. I thought that was very interesting. And I think it will be good if we can carry some of those lessons learned forward. Now, you mentioned that actually the virtual family time has reduced pressure and demands on social workers themselves. Have you had any feedback from the professionals themselves? And does that also include, you know, when the social workers, they are doing like statutory visits? How is that been accommodated in that?
So I think there are two questions.
Yeah.
So firstly, what's the feedback from social workers? And secondly, what did you do about visits? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So the feedback from social workers and from managers, I think at the start of the process, so at the start of COVID, was, you know, virtual family time's good. We know why it's here, because actually we need children to maintain their relationships with their families, but we don't see a place for it going forward. But actually, as we've gone through COVID, and they have realised there is real value in it, and social workers do really understand and value the place that virtual family time has, which is being a less intense, more relaxed way for children and young people to stay in contact with their families. And they have really seen the benefits. I think doing the survey really helped, because a lot of people responded, and we were able to evidence that actually overall the feedback was really good. In terms of visiting, we did have periods where in our looked after children service where we were doing virtual visits, and keeping in touch calls. You know, we were rag rating our visits to see whether they were red, amber or green. If they were green, we were visiting at a lower frequency than would be usual, and but we were still visiting those children and young people. And if there were any concerns around safety or safeguarding issues, we would do a direct face-to-face visit. And now we're back onto the road to recovery. We're back to our usual visiting schedule, and they will all be done face-to-face, albeit with additional phone calls and PPE and safeguards to make sure that we're keeping our workforce and carers and families safe. But yeah, we did do some virtual visiting as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's okay.
Okay, and there's a couple of questions in the chat. So Lisa asked if going forward, do you think contact will increase with virtual contact topping up arrangements?
I think that there is do I think contact will increase? It's a difficult question, because contact arrangements are made. You know, if a young person has a care plan of 3 times a year, then that's because that's what that young person needs. It's not an arbitrary recommendation. It will be based on an assessment. So for some young people, that 3 times a year, one of those contacts might be a virtual contact. For other young people, they might have every week, and you know, as they're going towards independence, they, you know, we agree that they can have virtual family time in between that. It's a very difficult question, so I wouldn't say that we'd be increasing contact arrangement, but it gives us more flexibility and a different way. It's just a different tool that we can support children and young people to maintain positive relationships with their family.
Great, and she's just come back. Lisa said, I just wondered if it might have raised expectations from parents.
We've been very clear throughout. So social workers have been having conversation with parents throughout. So there's no parents that think we're going to be able to talk to our children all the time now and it's going to be unrestricted. So I'm not worried about that. For some parents, yeah, it might be appropriate for them to have an additional call on their birthdays, but each circumstance is different, so it's really hard to give a kind of blanket view.
Great. And Jenny's just come in and asked, are you planning to further evaluate / publish your findings and experiences?
So I think it would be worth, although we haven't got firm plans to do that, I think it's always worth revisiting research, isn't it, that you do to make sure to see what's changed and whether the views are still the same. I think we would need to give it a good period of embedding, because at the moment we're still in the recovery process, so we're still only offering, we're also having to recover in terms of our contact service. So everyone that hasn't had a direct contact is having one this month, and then next month they're having 2, and then we're going back to our normal contact family time arrangements. So yeah, but I think it would need to be in about 9 to 12 months where we've really seen the impact of the kind of direct family time as well as the virtual family time, to make sure that everybody is still experiencing it as positively as they were before.
Great. Yeah, so there's no more questions in the chat. Has anyone else got any questions they'd like to ask Selina? Give it a few moments. Okay, so I've just seen Sarah pop up as well. Oh, you're on mute, Sarah.
Quoted.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute then. Thank you, Selina. That was a really interesting session. It doesn't look like anyone's got any further questions at the moment. But what I will say is that Adam is going to post a feedback link in the chat function. So if everybody would like to give some feedback, I'm sure that would be great for Selina, who's put the session together kindly, and also for the partnership as well. Thank you for coming today.
All right, thank you very much.
So just to let everyone know that any resources that were shared during this, if Selina's happy, we'll pop them on our website within 2 weeks of this event, and there'll also be a recording of this session as well, which will go up on our website.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Wonderful. Oh, we've got another question just popped in. How has the court reacted to virtual family time?
So the court have, you know, we've delivered this. I've delivered this session to our legal services, and they're very clear about virtual family time. The challenge that we've had is that you can't have a blanket rule for everyone, and we've continually said that we don't. We absolutely don't. There has been the face-to-face family time going on. Like I said, for very small children, young children, it's not appropriate to have virtual family time. So there has been the usual challenge, and I think we've been a bit different. What the feedback that I've been hearing is that other local authorities have been doing more face-to-face family time. But that doesn't mean that that's right, doesn't mean that it's wrong. Every local authority has had a different approach to family time during COVID. So we've had no legal challenge in terms of our family time offer. And I think that's because it is bespoke and it is led by the children and young people's needs. So that's where we are. I'll leave this and get notified that we've got some big challenge, you know, but I'm sure we won't, because like I said, I'm really happy that the family time offer that we are offering is really appropriate.
Right, yep, she's just replied. That's Laura said, thanks Selena, that's really helpful. Got someone typing at the moment, so we'll just see what they say first. What is your plan going forward in regards to resuming face-to-face family time?
So we've written a protocol so everyone's really clear, and we started resuming when the lockdown so when we started coming out of lockdown, so for that month, which was April, everybody had one direct family time session. We've now moved to 2, and then we've kind of tailored it to the roadmap, and by the time that there will be no more COVID restrictions, family time will be as normal, but it will be different because we're talking to people, IROs, legal, social workers, about looking at where it is appropriate to add virtual family time in there as well. So like I said, for some young people might have 6 sessions a year, maybe 2 of those will be done virtually. But it's about talking to everyone that's involved in that care plan and making sure that everybody feels comfortable with that.
Right, I think that's all the questions that we've had in the chat. Don't know if anyone else has anything else that they'd like to say before we wrap this up. No, so just a reminder that all the resources will be available online within 2 weeks after this event, and the feedback link has just been posted. We'll also email that out as well after the event, just to see if you've got a bit more time to fill it in for us. So Sarah.
Thank you, Selena. Thank you, Selena, and thank you everybody for attending.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.